Okay, this is video 44. Breaking up is never easy. Yeah, that's what I've experienced. I mean, in my life, there's people I miss from the past. Um, and I'd like to think I was missed. I don't know. This is the thing, you don't know, do you? Whether people you knew from the past miss you, or how would it be if you saw them again, and yeah, let's talk about it. So let's say you got a girlfriend. Let's keep it non-cult at the moment, keep it sort of simple. um, so you got a girlfriend, and whatever, she's crazy. She does stuff and it drives you absolutely insane, even to the point of God, I just can't be here. I can't be around her. She's driving me insane, you know. But she's really cute, She's sweet, kind of thing. And when you see her, you can't help think, wow, she's such a lovely person. But when you hear these words, oh, why don't you want to be around me anymore? What have I done? And it's sort of like, oh, I miss you, but I don't miss the way you behaved. you know and I can laugh about it now, but there's a lot of intense emotions. If you see somebody you knew from the past, but it's like, no. And some people respond to the end of a relationship in different ways. And that can teach you a lot about the person you thought you knew. Talking about girlfriends, I knew somebody, and yeah, she did drive me insane. To the point of God, I really felt like not being around. And then I saw her in the street one day, and she sort of turned her nose up at me, and sort of angry, sort of giving me a fierce stare. But she, good looking woman, lovely, lovely long blonde hair, nice looking. And I do remember the good times. I do remember the good times, but I won't say who she is, obviously, but she definitely had issues with money, and she definitely had a sort of princess syndrome, you know, sugar daddy kind of thing. And no, that's not who I am. Maybe if I'd won the lottery, maybe, but boy, she just used to get through money like, and just this sort of sense of entitlement. Um, but she got into all these crazy conspiracy theories, yeah, and it just didn't work out. And I thought, no, this is driving me insane. Then she got into drugs, no, and I just thought, what happened to that cute, cuddly 20 something lady? What happened to her? What happened to her? It's like under the shell of all the madness, there's this sort of cute lady, and then it's like, oh, why don't you want to know me anymore? Oh, please just don't say it. It's too painful. It's too emotional. But let's talk about cult friendships. And the thing is, right, cult relationships tend to be stagnant. That's my experience. I have a friend, and he went to the same cult, and one of the things he said to me, he says, every time I go there, it's like starting again. It's like the relationships. It's like you go to the fellowship, you say hello to people, and they sort of say hello to you, but it's I remember him saying it. It's like every time I go, it's like that. It's starting the relationship again. But there's no depth to it. There's no follow through. There's no, there's this sort of polite dismissiveness. You know, and it didn't. He was very glad to leave. He found a different church. I became an atheist, But there's always reasons to stay in a relationship or stay in a group. And I think this is one thing that sort of cult members could be vulnerable to is, let's say, reasons to stay. You enjoy the fellowship. You enjoy conversation. You enjoy talking to people. You might even enjoy the singing. You might not enjoy the singing if you actually thought about the words, but you enjoy the singing. You enjoy clapping. You enjoy being in a room full of people, learning something that you thought was interesting at the time, and now you realise was just a load of absolute gobbledygook. I mean, I think back to the good times when I was in the cult. Saturday nights used to go on dates. That was fun. We used to play sports on a Saturday. We used to do things on a Friday night. I used to give people lifts, and we used to chat, and it wasn't always about the agenda of the cult. I was work going. I can't say that these days because of 3 mental breakdowns and no work for the last, 18 years now was the last time I got paid. 18 years, 3 mental breakdowns later because of the cult. But not because of the nice, friendly people. Not because of the people I'd hang out with on a Saturday night or play football with, or, on a Friday night we used to go bowling and used things like that. Or, it was quite a fun aspect to it. But at the same time, there's reasons to go. The doctrine was complete, absolute insanity. But it seemed like it was from God at the time. The thing is, when you become aware of something that you weren't aware of, relationships change. And as much as you might like to just sort of turn the clock back or, have that relationship that faded away, you can't. I mean, trust me, I've tried. I mean, there's people I knew in the cult. Another woman, we used to go to this restaurant, this sort of carvery restaurant, and, we used to play a bit of pool, and we used to sort of have a nice cup of coffee at a golf club. And this was in a place called Camberley, Pine Ridge Golf. So I don't even know if the pool tables are still there. So I did a little bit of golf. This was when I was working many years ago. I could afford all of that, and I think, I've wasted all my money, haven't I? When work stops, often relationships can end as well. First of all, you don't see the people at work anymore, and you miss them. So even if you've never experienced a cult, but maybe you've experienced a change of career or a breakup with a friend, you know the feelings, and you think, God, I wish I could do that job again, but yeah, I can't go back there, and you can't go back. There's actually groups. There was a group that popped up on my Facebook. I don't know why it popped up. Say I trying to provoke me into a conversation, maybe, with brainwashed zombies. But I thought, God, why was this, and this person, they were talking about cults. And I know a thing or two about cults. So I thought, okay, let me engage in this conversation. But I have been, helping people out of cults for long enough to realise that, a sip of a drink. I've been around cults and helping people out of cults and exposing cults for enough years to very quickly recognise when, a group is either trying to recruit you or attack you. There's no sort of in between. If you want to ask questions, oh no, you have to do the Bible studies. But you're not allowed to ask questions out of order. I think of groups like the Jehovah's Witnesses, they do their watchtower and they go through certain scriptures in a certain order and they give you certain answers and certain questions. And you're literally being programmed like a mindless robot. And it's like, maybe the first, I went to a Jehovah Witness meeting with a friend who was a former JW, and he pretended he was somebody else because supposedly they got a database of ex-members, you know, and you know, somebody invited him along and he pretended to be somebody else to go along to these meetings, and he brought me along, you know, and I observed it, and they were passing this microphone around, and I just thought, God, this is torture. Sitting in a room full of smartly dressed, friendly people, if and when you get to talk to them, and that, you know, it was so robotic. It was so robotic. It was just like, I just couldn't wait for it to end. And they sung these really deadbeat songs. And the fellowship was mildly, mildly friendly, you know, but I must admit, comparing the ICOC cult to the Jehovah Witness cult, you know, the ICOC cult has a lot more sort of pizzazz. You know, I went to a Mormon cult as well for a little bit, you know, and they, you know, it's the old 1800s songs, and, you know, everybody's sort of dressed smartly, and, you know, it's maybe like the Amish, the modern day Amish, but, you know, you can have, if you've got no relationships or very few relationships, and you go to a cult, you can actually just get used to it, you know, because, well, this is better than nothing. Going to a cult is better than nothing, but it's not a good, the thing is, there are good groups out there, and by hanging around something that isn't good or teaches false doctrine, you're not doing yourself any favour. And, you know, people are creatures of habit, and it's like, oh no, I'm forming this habit. I've been to this group 4 Sundays in a row. Yeah, no, this was when I was just looking for God, you know. But it's breaking up is never easy because, as I said, there's reasons to stay and there's reasons to go, and probably you will miss the people, the nice, sincere members. Probably you will not miss the leaders at all. The pressure to recruit, the pressure to give money. Oh, you missed a meeting, and it's like you slowly climb down the ranks if you miss a couple of meetings. Oh, you're not serious anymore. You know, a little bit of very subtle kind of punishment, but come back, you know, and things will be all right again. You know, all control. But can you change? You can change, but can a group change? A group is highly unlikely to change. Yeah, this is the thing. Because it's what they stand for. And if they change, then some of the older members will think, well, this isn't right, and they'll form a schism, you know. And this happens in cults. Oh, it was better the way it was before the leader changed it. You know, Latin Mass. You know, there's Latin Mass cults. Oh, no, you're not allowed to do the Mass in Latin anymore. It's like, well, who decided that? And well done, you've now created Latin Mass cults. You know, it's like, it's a strange one, but the reasons you left in the first place could well be the reasons you leave in the second place. And the reasons, because you've become more aware, you will be painfully aware of, oh, I don't agree with that and I don't agree with that. And another thing I've noticed is this, if you've left a group and you've gone back to a group, certain people will sort of give you a funny look, like, oh, you left once, maybe you'll leave again. You know, that kind of thing. And once the trust is broken, that's it. You will always be a second-class church member, which is why I actually prefer Mass, because nobody seems to pay any attention to anyone who's there anyway. So, you know, I don't know if anybody knows anybody at Mass, really. It's probably why I stopped going to Catholic church, but enough for this video.